Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we'll be discussing the kidneys and the urinary system. But before we go into the anatomy and physiology of this wonderful system, I'd like to go to our handbook, which our Creator has given us, to understand more about not just spiritual things, but also even about our own bodies. You see, if we look at the book of Psalms, especially the verse 2 of Psalms 26, we find some very interesting counsel here. The psalmist said, "Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. Try my reins and my heart." Read that once again. "Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. Try my reins and my heart." Do you realize what the word reins there is literally translated as? It actually means kidneys. Try my kidneys and my heart. Try my kidneys and my mind. Are we doing things today that are disrupting this wonderful organ that in the body plays such a dramatic role? You see, David realized this back then, many thousands of years ago, when he realized that his kidneys were important. He said, "Lord, try me, examine me. Is there anything that I'm doing internally with my works? Is there anything I'm doing that I could be damaging the wonderful mechanism that you have made?" I'll tell you today that many people are perishing today because they're not asking the Lord to examine their ways. They're not asking the Lord to examine their heart, examine their mind, their thoughts, and examine their kidneys, examine their reins, examine what they're doing in terms of lifestyle. If we look at the lifestyle-related disability and disease death rates that we have here in this chart, we find that kidney failure is among the top 10 causes of death in the United States today. Over 26,000 people a year die from kidney disease. Now, this doesn't even mention the amount of disability and the amount of people that are currently disabled and hooked up to dialysis units and living a very low quality of life at this present time because of the fact that there is a lifestyle that promotes kidney disease, and there is a lifestyle and a new plan, a new start that actually helps to minimize current disability and even prevent kidney disease in the first place. God's plan. Let's take a look at the role of the kidneys in the body. The kidneys play several different roles. Specifically, they are a blood cleanser. They also help to modify the blood pressure using hormonal feedback systems. But there are many other functions as well that kidneys play, but those are the two main roles: modifying the blood pressure and getting rid of waste. Today we'll be looking at these two in particular. Some of the waste that kidneys filter out of the blood include nitrogen, extra protein related waste like urea. And there are other mechanisms by which you can actually have waste products being eliminated through the body as well. Kidneys are not the only ones. In fact, our skin, the largest organ in our body, or outside of our body, actually eliminates quite a bit of waste as well. We eliminate waste through urine, through the kidneys byproduct there, feces through the intestines. Mucus also gets rid of a lot of waste. We trap waste that comes into our lungs in mucus and expectorate that waste. And we also exhale waste products with every exhalation of our lungs. So, is there a way in which we can help the kidneys to function properly? Well, in Psalms 23:16, we find the admonition, "My reins," or my kidneys, "shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things." You see, when we're truly following out the ways of the Lord, the ways in which He's instructed us, the ways of life and light and happiness and truth, then we will be actually reducing the disease burden, reducing the toxin burden upon all of these systems, including the reins. The reins truly will rejoice. The kidneys will truly rejoice. So will the skin and the intestines and the lungs. All of these will be rejoicing when we're following God's plan, God's way of life. Let's take a look specifically at the anatomy of the kidneys. When we look here at this diagram, we see that the kidneys are located in the back of the person here. This is as though their back was opened up. You see the ribs and you see the spinal cord that's been removed. But up here you do see a vertebrae and you see the ribs coming down. You'll notice that the kidneys are right there in the back. And they're kind of protected in a way from blunt force injuries that would occur in the front of the body. A little bit less protected in the back, but they do have the ribs and the top parts of the kidneys are protected by the ribs. Now, when we look at this other diagram, we see that this is a view of the front of the body. We see the kidneys are behind all these other organs. They're kind of shielded there. Why is that? Because they are very, very rich in blood supply, and so they need to be protected. I've heard of individuals playing football or boxing or something like this and actually losing a kidney, because once a kidney is damaged due to blunt injury or trauma, it can be irreparably damaged and actually can lead to bleeding to death as well. We see here the kidneys are located off of the two main artery and vein circuits, the aorta coming from the heart, which is very high pressure, and the vena cava going back to the heart, which is less pressure, of course. And so the kidneys basically have a very, very dramatic role to play in the bloodstream, in the blood supply. In fact, these kidneys filter all the blood in the body every 10 minutes, about 150 times per day. You have all of the blood in your body filtered by your kidneys. So kidneys we need to keep in very good condition so they can continue to cleanse the body of impurities. Not only are kidneys involved in cleansing the blood plasma, they are also involved in building up the amount of red blood cells in the blood. They actually secrete a chemical, hormone known as erythropoietin, and it actually initiates the production of new red blood cells from the hematopoietic stem cells located in the bone marrow. Also, kidneys play a role in protecting the red blood cells. You see, if our blood supply has too much sodium or too much solute, then we can have problems with our blood cells not functioning properly. We can have kind of the shriveled effect of our blood cells. If the plasma in which the blood cells are floating around in is isotonic or is normotonic, has just the right amount of solute, then the red blood cells will be functioning properly. They'll be having the correct amount of water inside and outside. Now, if there's too little solute outside, let's say the kidneys are putting out too much solute or salt, then you actually have a swelling up of the red blood cell. So shriveling up or swelling up are the two extremes. We need to be in a temperate osmolality in terms of the amount of solute in our bloodstream. And so the kidneys play a role in this. Now, another direct role that kidneys play in the circulatory system is that of blood pressure regulation. A chemical is actually secreted due to decreased blood flow by the kidneys. This is known as renin. Renin actually causes the peripheral blood supply, vasculature, to actually constrict. So you have a constriction of some of the arteries in the periphery, such as the arms and the legs, and the arteries that are kind of closer to the skin. These will be constricted, and at the same time it causes a release of something known as aldosterone. Now, aldosterone is secreted by the adrenal glands. These are located right on the top of the kidneys, and these cause retention of sodium, chloride, and water. So the effect basically is that we have a water and salt retention What does that do? That allows the blood supply to temporarily have a volume increase. So you're not continually losing when you have a low blood supply. You're not diminishing that blood supply further and further through the extreme loss of water and salt. So it's a wonderful system, very, very complex as well. We also have this system diagrammed here as well. Just note that there are many feedbacks here, very feedback-oriented system here. Now, if you have ever heard of a ACE inhibitor, you see now the process by which it has its effect. See, many people take ACE inhibitors to lower their blood pressure, but what they're actually doing is they're interfering with a normal bodily process, a bodily process that keeps the blood pressure normal. So instead of actually changing lifestyle, people have said, well, I'm just going to change my normal bodily process by a pill to normalize my blood pressure. But I'll submit to you the better way is to actually live healthy, to have a healthy supply of water, a healthy supply of salt, not too much salt if you're in this condition already, and allow the ACE enzyme to actually function properly in case you do need to have a normalization of the blood pressure. Now, many people who are elderly are on these types of ACE inhibitors, and they're not realizing that, in order to really solve the problem, they should be drinking adequate amounts of water to promote the kidney function, and not following some other simple health modifications, lifestyle modifications that could really bring benefit and health to their blood pressure. And so many people are led into a state of dehydration, whether it be by faulty conclusion that their drugs are going to take care of all their problems, all of their lifestyle related issues, that they're not willing to make changes and actually fix the right way instead of taking the medications to kind of put a Band-Aid over the problem. And so they end up with dehydration. There's also a diminished thirst sensation among the elderly, so a lot of elderly don't realize they really need to drink water. So it's really a regimen that people need to get into. But in terms of elderly individuals who decide they're not going to drink water for whatever reason it is, they have a tremendous impact upon their health. Not only are people dehydrated here, we're not seeing another underlying problem, and that is if they're dehydrated, they're not getting enough water and they're not allowing their kidneys to properly get rid of toxins. Why is that? Because kidneys need water in order to get rid of toxins. Some of the waste that kidneys excrete, small chemical toxins, sometimes certain drugs are released through the drainage system of the kidneys. Also excess electrolytes like excess salt or potassium or calcium, and of course excess water. Now, most of the time the water is released in combination with toxins. So keep in mind, if you have a lot of toxins, you'll need to probably rinse your body out a little bit better. Of course, you can have too much water. If you drink several gallons a day, you may be drinking too much water. But we'll get into specific water recommendations in a few minutes. But just know that you do need water to get rid of waste. Now, when we look at the kidney itself, we have two kidneys in the normal human body, and we have something here in the kidney that is truly the most functional unit of the kidney. This is known as the nephron, the individual kidney cells. Now, the nephrons are estimated to be around 1 million in number, and they're so efficient in doing this job of filtration that you could even lose one kidney and operate on half of your nephrons that you have and still adequately cleanse the body of impurities. You can still have adequate renal function with only one kidney left. But that doesn't give any excuse for damaging our kidneys. We need to keep our kidneys in great working order so we can be even more efficient at removing toxins and normalizing blood pressure. This is a look at the interior function of a nephron. This is a process known as globular filtration and reabsorption that occurs here in the nephron. Basically what we have here is a blood supply that's coming in through the arteriole. This is coming, remember, from the aorta, which is a very high pressure component of the arterial circuit, and it's coming in through the afferent arteriole up here at the top. Now the blood is forced down into something called the globular capillaries. Capillaries are places where exchange of nutrients or chemicals or small particles can occur. And so as a result, this high pressure pushes out a lot of water out of this globular capillary into the Bowman's capsule. And there are also some other solutes that pass through as well, some small molecular items such as salt and other electrolytes. And although the blood is pushed out through the globular capillaries, it also travels back through another portal here, which is known as the efferent arteriole. Now the efferent arteriole is also a very high pressure, it's an arteriole and it's not a vein. Usually capillaries are situated in between an arteriole and a venule, an artery and a vein, but not in this case. And so what we have here is a very ingenuitive setup for filtration and reabsorption. So the blood that's traveling through the arteriole travels down into the peritubular capillaries. Now, because of the increased blood pressure right here in the efferent arteriole, there is a elimination in the number 3, the secretion phase of this. We skipped number 2, I'll go back to that. But there's an increase in also the elimination of certain particles being pushed through the peritubular capillaries also back into the Bowman's capsule. But it wouldn't be good if we just lost all of our solute in this system. And so God has put in place certain systems by which things are actually reabsorbed back into the bloodstream as well. So you don't lose too much of your salt. You don't lose too much of your potassium. Don't lose too many of these very essential electrolytes and other essential constituents, even water at times. And so what we have here is a reabsorption phase in step 2. Step 2, something called osmotic pressure, which is basically pressure generated by a need to satisfy a ratio. And this ratio basically is solvent to solute ratio. Now, this system is based on one simple premise, and that is that you need a membrane in between two areas, a semi-permeable membrane that allows the transfer of solvent back and forth. In this case, it would be water. So you have an area over here and an area over here, and a membrane in between. Now the ratio of solvent and solute need to be the same. If they're not, then something called hydrostat or osmotic pressure is generated. It's almost like there's a drive to come to equilibrium, to be equalized. And so what will happen is, let's say you had 2 salt molecules over here combined with the water, and you had 5 over here. What would happen is that you would have an increase in the amount of water that would go to this side, go to the higher salinity side, to equal out the amount of water molecules that you have with the salt molecules. And so you would have an equilibrium that's established. So the hydrostatic pressure, or the osmotic pressure would be driving solvent through the membrane. This is known as osmosis or osmotic pressure. And so with that, there are also membranes in this system that only allow the passage of salt and other chemicals, compounds that need to go back into the bloodstream. It's really an amazing and complex and complicated system. And to be all honest with you, man is just starting to learn about the complexity of the kidney. And we've had many of these drugs that have been out for years and years and years, and we're realizing, hey, this is actually damaging the kidneys. We can't let this happen. There are other things that can damage the kidneys, though, as well. Even just uncontrolled high blood pressure can actually push proteins, or the larger particles, through the globular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. You can be actually, quote, spilling protein. It's what many doctors will refer to it as. If you have large amounts of protein in your urine, it could be a sign that you've had very high blood pressure that has actually pushed out proteins through these narrow spaces in between the capillaries. Proteins should not be pushed, or large proteins should not be pushed out into the Bowman's capsule. That's a sign of something going on with the membrane here. And looking back here on the steps here, we find a step of excretion. Urinary excretion occurs from the Bowman's capsule. This is where the urine is collected and excreted. It goes down in through the larger ducts into actually something known as the ureter. The ureter is right here in the system. We have these small areas going into the larger areas and then going down into the ureters. And that's basically how the urine is pulled away from the Bowman's capsule itself. Now you notice something interesting about urine. Urine generally has a pale, at least a pale yellow color to it. Depending on how much water you're drinking, how diluted your urine is, it may have a less and less tint to it. But this is normal to have a slight yellow tint to your urine. In fact, it's a sign that your kidneys are eliminating some of the waste products found in the bloodstream, most notably urea. And if you look here, this is basically a blood plasma floating up here on the top. Blood had a lot of water up there at first, then going down into greater concentrations of solute. Then all the way down you see red blood cells. If someone draws your blood and they put it into a centrifuge, this is how your blood will collect. The weightier molecules will fall down to the bottom, and you'll see everything just still kind of suspended here that's lighter weight. So we do have some protein that's there, some waste product that's even there in the blood. So it's essential for our kidneys to be functioning properly so they can filter these waste products out of the blood. We don't continually circulate them. If we do continually circulate these wastes, they'll cause problems in other parts of the body because a buildup of toxins is not just going to be harmful there to the kidneys, but also to all other organs in the body. But kidney disease in particular is really all about temperance. What is temperance? Well, Christian temperance is abstinence from that which is harmful and moderate use of that which is beneficial. In terms of kidney failure in particular, we can have a buildup of toxins in our system, such as drugs, toxic metabolites from drugs, etc. Even something like Tylenol, or a lot of these non-prescription anti-inflammatory products actually have toxic metabolites, things that are toxic byproducts of their metabolism that can actually build up and damage kidneys' ability to function, kidney cells' ability to function, and even destroy certain kidney cells as well. Also, infection can cause problems in the kidneys, and as we said before, direct physical damage. High blood pressure is one of these, and also a mechanical injury such as a blunt blow to the back, for instance, could cause some problems with mechanical injury to the kidney. There are 3 different criteria for diagnosing or distinguishing between kidney problems. One is known as pre-renal, the other is post-renal, and the other is infrarenal. So kidney failure can be caused, or kidney problems can be caused by pre-renal, things that are coming in prior to the nephron. Post-renal, things that are happening after the nephron, and infrarenal, things that are actually happening there in the nephron that causes these problems. So this lesson in temperance can actually help to reduce problems such as kidney stones as well, not just kidney disease. You see, high protein diet is a good example of intemperance in diet. For if we look at the way that God packaged food stuffs, fruits and vegetables are not naturally high in a lot of protein. In fact, the Genesis diet reveals to us a diet that is actually very beneficial to the kidneys. The high protein diet actually brings about an excess of uric acid, which some kidney stones are composed primarily of uric acid, and also a loss of calcium in the urine. And if it's not a uric acid type stone, it may be a calcified stone. And so this increase of calcium in the urine can actually bring about kidney stones just from a high protein diet. It can also wreak havoc on your bones as well, causing osteoporosis. Now, it's not just what we eat in terms of diet, but also what we supplement our body with as well that can be bringing about kidney stones. In fact, high dose supplementation of calcium, of vitamin C, and of chromium have all been found to cause kidney stones. And so it's important for us to be temperate in our supplementation of calcium, vitamin C, and chromium if we do realize the need for that. Another thing that can bring about kidney stones, too much sugar in the diet. If we have too many refined carbohydrates in our diet, we actually have an increased secretion of calcium in the urine. And remember, these can build up into kidney stones. This is due to increased insulin levels. If we're diabetic and we say, well, doesn't matter what I'm going to eat, I'm going to cover it with my insulin, what we're doing is we're also increasing the secretion of calcium in our urine by following that unhealthy lifestyle. And so we're bringing about further debility, even maybe kidney stones. Another lesson in abstinence, we know that moderate use of that which is beneficial is important, but also total abstinence from that which is bad. So these two things here would be two in this category. However, there are many more. It's something that we need to distinguish on our own prayerfully. But I'll submit to you that sodas are also a bad initiator. They are a good initiator. They are an initiator of kidney stones because the phosphoric acid oftentimes found in kidneys, because the phosphoric acid oftentimes found in sodas will actually draw calcium out of the bones. Now, caffeine, which is also found in sodas many times, will increase dehydration. And so what happens here is the kidneys will start to bring about a protective mechanism whereby they'll reduce the amount of water that's being eliminated through the kidneys, and you have more calcium there. So you have much greater risk of developing a kidney stone because the water is not continually flushing out those Bowman's capsules and those areas that may build up this high amount of calcium. The National Kidney Research Fund said that increasing your water intake to approximately 8 glasses a day is truly the best way to ensure proper kidney function, avoid kidney stones, and protect against urinary tract infections. So when it comes down to it, really when it comes to urinary tract health, and this is the entire renal system going down to the ureters, going down to the bladder, even to the urethra. It's essential that we have enough water to protect these vital areas. The World Health Organization recommends 12 8-ounce glasses for men, and for women, 9 8-ounce glasses per day. Now, this is a good way of remembering this, but I'll submit to you there's an even easier way. And that is to remember that we need approximately 5 8-ounce glasses of water a day to stay alive, 5 to stay alive, 8 to feel great, and 12 to rejuvenate. How many of you today are in need of rejuvenation? I know that I am. And I'll tell you that many Americans are in this need of rejuvenation as well. You see, many Americans today, and many in the Western world today, are realizing that they're thirsty, but they don't even know what to do after that. 37% of Americans thirst, not for water, but they believe that that thirst is driving them to eat. Their thirst sensation is impaired. And 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. And so what happens is you have a deadly combination here. People are not going to the water to satisfy their thirst. They're going to the food because they think this food will satisfy this other need over here. But it won't truly satisfy. They can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, but they're still going to be thirsty. Why is that? Because they haven't truly gone to the source. They haven't gone to the source. I'll submit to you today that there are many people today that are ignoring an even more important type of thirst. Because while many people today will mistake physical thirst sensation for the yearnings for food to satisfy their thirst for food, many people try to satisfy the thirst of better things, the thirst for peace, for fulfillment, for happiness, for reward, for joy, truly in life, with the things of this world. Hungering after the things of this world will not truly satisfy the intense longing of the soul. I'll submit to you there's only one who can truly satisfy these things. Just like water is free, this is free as well. It says in Revelation 22:17, "And let him who thirsts come, whoever desires, let him take of the water of life freely." You see, when this kind of system is initiated, we truly can say with David, our reins will rejoice when the water of life speaks. Are you ready and willing to listen to that voice today?